The United States keeps North Korea on its list of countries with the worst records on human trafficking. This as North Korea's favorite American, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is reported to fly to Pyongyang next week to talk denuclearization. And amid the shifting diplomatic landscape in the region, top defense officials of Seoul and Washington displayed their ironclad alliance once again, even after the two agreed to suspend their joint drills. The numbers are out. South Korea's overall industrial output is up a little, while retail and investment figures reflecting consumption are down. On the future economy, businesses are losing confidence, with pessimism at a level not seen for a long time. Our starting point this morning, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is readying a visit to Pyongyang next week to push forward the Trump administration's efforts to denuclearizing that regime. Citing unnamed U.S. officials, the Financial Times says Pompeo has canceled a planned July 6th meeting with his Indian counterparts in Washington in order to fly to Pyongyang. Now, the officials added that the joint declaration signed by the two leaders on June 12th stipulated that Pompeo would hold follow-on talks with the unnamed senior North Korean official, quote, at the earliest possible date, but had given no specific timeline. The visit will be the first senior-level meeting between the two sides since the historic summit in Singapore. And the top military officials from South Korea and the U.S. have shown their strong alliance amid the shifting geopolitical landscape in the region. The two sides agreed the Korean peninsula sits at a crucial diplomatic juncture as talks continue on bringing North Korea into the international fold. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
In their opening statement before closed-door meeting, the two defense chiefs reaffirmed their steadfast and ironclad alliance, vowing that they will continue, quote, watertight consultations at a time when major changes are happening on the Korean peninsula.
We're standing at a turning point between the dark shadow of conflict and confrontation that hung over the Korean peninsula for the last 70 years, and the brighter new history of peace and cooperation. This is a precious opportunity made by President Moon and U.S. President Trump's vision and decisions. South Korea and the U.S. pledged their utmost effort to ensure that this opportunity not only leads to the peace and the prosperity of the Korean peninsula, but also Northeast Asia and the world.
They also confirmed the decision to suspend the Freedom Guardian exercise originally scheduled for this August. Mattis said the suspension of the joint military exercises will create a better environment for diplomats to negotiate with the North.
The recent decision to suspend the Freedom Guardian exercise creates increased opportunity for our diplomats to negotiate, increasing prospects for a peaceful solution on the peninsula. At the same time, the U.S. and ROK forces remain united, vigilant, and ready to defend against any challenge.
The suspension of the Freedom Guardian exercise, however, doesn't mean that the two countries will suspend all future military drills. Military sources told Arirang News that the two defense chiefs agreed that the two countries will decide the timing, scope, and scale of future joint military drills and announce the details together, considering the North's progress in denuclearization and the military's combat readiness. Mattis also stressed that the U.S. will maintain its current troop levels on the peninsula.
U.S. commitment to the Republic of Korea remains ironclad, and the U.S. will continue to use the full range of diplomatic and military capabilities to uphold this commitment. And this includes maintaining the current U.S. force levels on the Korean peninsula.
The two leaders also shared a common view that international sanctions on the North should remain in effect until Pyongyang takes concrete and irreversible steps for denuclearization. The two defense chiefs also briefly discussed the transfer of wartime operational control to South Korea, but didn't reveal many details of those discussions. They stressed that this year marks the 65th anniversary of the signing of the bilateral mutual defense treaty and 50 years of close consultation through annual joint security consultative meetings, and they vowed to further strengthen the alliance in pursuit of the shared goal of peace in the region. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
U.S. Forces Korea is holding a ceremony this morning as we speak to mark the opening of its newly built headquarters in Camp Humphreys, located in Gyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do Province. Along with U.S. Forces Korea, the ROK U.S. Combined Forces Command is scheduled to bid farewell to Yongsan Garrison in central Seoul by the end of the year. The opening of Camp Humphreys comes more than 10 years since groundbreaking began in late 2007, and the USFK Command is leaving Yongsan 61 years after its official establishment. For the 16th year in a row, the United States has kept North Korea on its list of countries with the worst records on human trafficking. The State Department report put North Korea in Tier 3 of its watch list on this year's Trafficking in Persons report. Tier 3 is the worst rank of the list, and such a bad ranking can trigger American sanctions limiting access to U.S. and international foreign assistance. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also said an untold number of North Koreans are subject to forced labor overseas by their own government. And also on the list was Myanmar, being added to the Tier 3 for the first time this year, with the U.S. accusing it of using child soldiers. Earlier this week, the two Koreas held talks on linking up and modernizing their railways. And on Thursday, another meeting was held, and this time to discuss connecting their highways and improving roads north of the border. Our Oh Jung-hee tells us more.
In their talks on Thursday, the two Koreas determined some specific parts of roads in the north end of those crossing the border to modernize, and they'll start checking the status of these roads from August.
We agreed that modernizing the Donghae and Gyeonggi roads is important to achieving balanced economic development and common prosperity.
There are two roads they're hoping to work on: the Gyeonggi Road that links Seoul and the North Korean city of Sinuiju, and the Donghae Road along the peninsula's east coast. On the eastern route, they've decided to modernize the section between the cities of Goseong and Wonsan, and on the western route, the section between the North Korean cities of Kaesong and Pyongyang. The two Koreas will work together on the road's design and construction, with the hope of holding a groundbreaking ceremony as soon as possible. For all this to happen, the two Koreas will first check together on the sections that are to be upgraded.
To connect and modernize the roads between the south and the north, we've decided to first form a joint team to conduct research and inspections. The work will start with the Gyeonggi Road in August.
Seoul and Pyongyang also promised to co-develop the advanced technology necessary for building and operating these roads. They'll also continue to exchange documents and hold working-level talks to set up practical measures for joint research and road upgrades. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Amid the rapid developments on the Korean Peninsula, there are mixed views on both hope and skepticism toward North Korea. Joseph De Trani, former special envoy to the six-party talks, is closely watching the developments with guarded optimism and believes there are many reasons to feel more confident this time around. Our Park Hee-jun sat down with him.
Ambassador De Trani, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. With your experience of negotiating with North Korea on the nuclear issue, how would you assess the recent developments on the Korean Peninsula?
There's so much work to be done here, but there's hope. 6 months ago, we were very close to having conflict on the Korean Peninsula. Now, as we sit here in June, we're looking at the prospects of denuclearization, complete denuclearization in North Korea, and North Korea integrating into the family of nations, and looking at economic development and walking away from nuclear weapons. We've had some moments of partial success in the past, only to be disappointed. But I think right now, there's lots of reasons to be optimistic.
So are you saying that North Korea will eventually keep up its end of the bargain when it comes to nuclear issue?
In the past, we were negotiators, and we worked this, and we moved it forward for our leaders to agree on. And we had the joint statement of 2005. In this case, it's our leaders sitting down and negotiating and making it, which means this is much more viable. This has much more credibility because it's a commitment of our leaders, President Moon Jae-in, President Donald Trump, President Xi Jinping, Prime Minister Abe, President Putin. It's our leaders making this commitment with Chairman Kim Jong-un.
Now, we don't know exactly when the regime will, get with its program on nuclear disarmament, but when it does, I would assume that all the preparation, including inspections, would have to be in place beforehand. Could you help us walk us through the entire process for preparation on North Korea's
Well, that's the key. Basically, a declaration of their nuclear and missile, mid-range, long-range missile capabilities, and then agree to a verification protocol. Now, we know what that universe looks like, and then they have to agree. This is normal procedure. The IAEA does this all the time. And it's likely, hopefully, we would have IAEA monitors there. If not that, certainly the nuclear weapon state monitors there, like the United States, China, Russia, to confirm that North Korea is dismantling the way they said they would. The question has to be then, where do you dismantle these nuclear weapons? Do you dismantle them in North Korea? Do you take those nuclear weapons out somewhere else? Do the North Koreans take the responsibility for dismantlement, or do we sort of collaborate on dismantlement? I think 2 years is very ambitious to complete it. I think we can get a good deal done, but again, it depends on what that nuclear universe looks like of theirs.
What would be the smart and ideal way to press North Korea to complete and irreversible denuclearization?
Normalization of relations with the United States is key to get this process going, because normalization with the United States would give North Korea access to US financial institutions and then the international financial institutions, so that they will get foreign direct investment, things they need for economic development. They need that. But for normalization of relations with the United States, we also require a very robust dialogue on human rights and illicit activities. And we need to see very tangible, verifiable progress on these issues. So it's nuclear to get us to the table, but for normalization, these other issues come into play, and they are important also.
Thank you so much for your time and insight again.
Thanks for your interest and your concern. And congratulations what the Republic of Korea is doing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now to some figures that shine a spotlight on the state of the country's local economy. South Korea's industrial output went up in May from the month before, maintaining its upward trend for the second straight month. Statistics Korea says overall industrial output rose 0.3% as mining and manufacturing jumped over 1%. However, retail sales, reflecting the level of consumption, fell by 1%, continuing its downward trend for the second consecutive month. And the gloom continues on the business front. Businesses are still pessimistic about future economic conditions, with the central bank's business survey index for manufacturing firms remaining below the reading of 100, though the figure edged up 1 point in July from the month before. South Korea's Constitutional Court has ordered the government to introduce civilian forms of service for conscientious objectors who currently face prison for refusing to serve in the military for reasons like their religious beliefs. And the Defense Ministry says it honors the ruling and will bring about alternative services as soon as possible. Our Kan Hyung-woo reports.
The Constitutional Court of Korea has once again ruled that punishing conscientious objectors is constitutional, saying on Thursday that refusing to carry out military duty on the grounds of religious beliefs or conscience is not a justifiable reason. But the court said it is unconstitutional that the current Military Service Act does not include alternative services, as its Article 5 only lists certain forms of military service, such as active duty or serving as a civil servant. The court ordered the National Assembly to amend Article 5 before December 31, 2019, so that it does contain an alternative type of service. There has long been a debate over whether people should be given the right to refuse to perform military service in a country where national security remains an important issue, given the political situation on the Korean Peninsula. Thursday's ruling is the fourth judgment on the issue. The court made two previous decisions in 2004 and another in 2011, ruling in each case that holding objectors criminally accountable for violating the Military Service Act is constitutional. Cases of conscientious objection in South Korea have seen mixed rulings in different courts. Defendants in all 83 cases since 2004 were found innocent by the lower courts, but every ruling was overturned by the Supreme Court. The current law says that refusing to be drafted without justifiable reasons is punishable by a prison term of up to 3 years. Kanyoung-woo, Arirang News.
And taking things to the Russia for the 2018 World Cup, the last of the group games took place on Thursday ahead of the start of the knockout phase, the round of 16 on Saturday. And our Lee Seung-jae has a wrap of the day's action, starting with Colombia versus Senegal.
Day 14 of the 2018 World Cup kicked off with 2 matches in Group H. It included Colombia, who are looking to finish strong in Group H as they took on Senegal, who just needed a draw to progress. Senegal held out during the first half, keeping the South Americans at bay. But the deadlock was broken in the 74th minute. Yerry Mina's header from Juan Quintera's cross found the back of the net, giving Colombia the lead. Senegal desperately poured forward searching for a goal, but to no avail. With the game ending 1-0, Colombia advances to the last 16, finishing top of Group H with 6 points. In Volgograd, Poland took on Japan, having already been eliminated from the World Cup after 2 straight losses. In the 59th minute, Jan Bednarik's close-range shot gave the Polish the 1-0 lead and the win. Japan, with 4 points, found themselves tied on points with Senegal, but the Asian nation advanced by having a better disciplinary record than the African side. Later in the day, 2 more matches closed out Group G. England and Belgium, having already advanced to the next round, rested most of their star players in a bid to keep them fresh for the later rounds. The game remained scoreless until the 51st minute when Aran Januzaj's left-foot shot gave Belgium the 1-0 lead. With Belgium holding on for the victory, they topped Group G with a maximum 9 points. England advancing in the second qualification spot. Also in Group G, Panama went head-to-head with Tunisia. Panama, looking to win their first ever World Cup match, got off to a good start when Yacine Maria's own goal in the 33rd minute gave Panama the 1-0 lead at halftime. But Tunisia came out strong in the second half, scoring 2 unanswered goals in the 51st and 66th minute, crushing Panama's quest for a first World Cup win. With the group stage matches over, the first knockout stage match between France and Argentina will take place on Saturday. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet for their first official summit on July 16th in Helsinki. For more on this and other news around the world, we turn to our Aram at the NewsCenter. So, Aram, the big unknown is, will we see a thaw in relations between the two sides?
Well, so, it is hard to tell at the moment, but it is a first step towards reaching that goal. It will all come down to what is discussed between the two leaders and if any concrete results come out of their talks. The date and location were announced simultaneously by the White House and Kremlin on Thursday. The White House said in its statement that the two leaders will discuss relations between the two nations and a range of national security issues. The Kremlin issued a similar statement. It remains to be seen whether or not contentious issues such as alleged Russian election meddling will be touched upon. That is one issue that has sent tensions between Washington and Moscow spiraling into a near Cold War low. Helsinki, the venue for the summit, as it turns out, is famed for its Cold War diplomacy. The date, July 16th, has also been set to follow Trump's trip to a NATO summit in Brussels and a stop in Britain. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg welcomed the talk, saying he also wants a better relationship with Russia. For Putin, the summit will offer a chance to try to persuade Washington to lift some of the US sanctions imposed on his country. They were imposed over Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea, its support for separatists fighting the government in eastern Ukraine, and its alleged meddling in the 2016 US presidential election. However, the upcoming meeting will be closely watched by US allies in Europe, as well as Russia skeptics who want to isolate Moscow over its leader's continued hostility towards the West. They are also concerned that Trump is being a bit too friendly with Putin. The pair have met before on the sidelines of international gatherings and have spoken on the phone at least 8 times. European leaders are at loggerheads over the issue of migration, bringing an EU summit one step closer to ending without an agreement. They're meeting in Brussels on Thursday and Friday for a summit that was supposed to focus on Brexit. Italy has threatened to veto a summit agreement if the bloc didn't meet Rome's demands for more help managing arrivals to its shores. Italy is the entry point to mainly African migrants, and it wants other countries to share the burden of arrivals. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the migration issue could be, quote, a make-or-break issue for the European Union. Her Interior Minister, Horst Seehofer, has said Germany would turn away asylum seekers already registered in other EU countries if she didn't come up with a solution by July 1st. Merkel needs his party support in order to maintain parliamentary majority back at home. EU leaders are discussing the crisis behind closed doors over dinner. 5 people have been killed and several others injured in a shooting at a newspaper office in the U.S. state of Maryland. Local police said the gunman opened fire inside the newsroom of the Capitol Gazette building in Annapolis on Thursday. The suspect was put into custody after being found hiding underneath a desk with his weapon on the ground nearby. He is known to be a white male in his 30s living in Maryland, but he reportedly damaged his fingerprints to avoid being identified. Police said it was a targeted attack on the newspaper, which had recently received threats indicating violence. The suspect was also said to be carrying fake grenades and smoke bombs in a backpack.
Good morning. There will be a short break from the monsoon rain, but expect passing showers today. And there could be some sporadic rain, which could come with thunderstorms and even hail, so you'll want to keep an umbrella handy today as well. Temperature-wise, highs in Seoul will be similar to yesterday, while southern regions will notice highs 2 to 5 degrees hotter than Thursday. So with the heat and high humidity, it's going to be one sticky day. Seoul will get up to 28 degrees Celsius, and Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 31 degrees. Chuncheon, Gyeongju, Daejeon will be topping out at 30 degrees this afternoon. And many will feel discomfort in the afternoon, so try to take it easy today. In fact, we'll have heavy monsoon showers returning tomorrow. The monsoon front will drop heavy showers on the entire nation, and rain could come down hard depending on the region, so be sure to keep an eye on the weather updates. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that'll do it for us at the hour, but keep it tuned for more news updates coming up at noon Korea time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.
back our great fallen heroes, the remains. In fact, today already 200 have been sent back.
한국 전쟁에서 전사한 군인과 경찰의 유해 발굴도 마지막 한 분까지 계속해 나갈 것입니다. 남북 관계가 개선되면 비무장지대의 유해 발굴을 우선적으로 추진하겠습니다.
Literally speaking, the essence of love in a short poem. Grass flower, pretty with a close look, lovely with a long gaze. So are you.
우리가 너무 잘 살고 너무 우리가 빠르게 속도에 빠져 있어서 그래요. 그리고 상대적 비교에 빠져서 그래요. 자기를 살